Picture this. It's April 26th, 2025. You're a fifth-round NFL draft pick, the kind of player most guys in your position would be praying just to hear their name called. Then your phone rings. On the other end is the Baltimore Ravens, one of the most respected, most successful organizations in the league. They want you. Most rookies would be grinning from ear to ear, calling their families and rushing to get that contract signed. But instead you say no. Not let me think about it, not maybe we'll circle back. Just flat out no. And if that sounds insane, it gets crazier. Because not long after, the phone rings again. This time it's the Philadelphia Eagles. Then again, the Cleveland Browns. And one by one, you turn them all down. That's not fiction. That's exactly what Cheater Sanders did on draft day and what might go down as the most audacious power move in NFL history. A kid who had fallen from a projected top 10 pick all the way to the 5th round wasn't scrambling for a roster spot like everyone expected. He was rejecting multiple teams outright. For months, the story we were told seemed simple enough. ESPN's insiders reported that Sanders rejected the Ravens because he didn't want to sit behind Lamar Jackson. The narrative wrote itself, entitled, arrogant, maybe even delusional. Here was a player who had watched his draft stock collapse, slipping past 31 teams for 4 grueling rounds, and instead of swallowing his pride, he was still being choosy. It sounded like classic Nepo baby behavior, the spoiled son of a Hall of Famer thinking he was above the grind. But then, just when the conversation seemed locked in, Cam Newton stepped up to the mic on his podcast and flipped the script. With one sentence, Newton completely rewrote the story. It wasn't just the Ravens. It was 3 teams. Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Cleveland all made moves to get Cheater Sanders in that 5th round. And all 3 got turned down. The football world stopped in its tracks. Newton didn't just reveal new information, he reframed the entire draft day drama as something far bigger than arrogance. He painted Sanders' decisions as a calculated, strategic rejection of 3 very different organizations. Suddenly, this wasn't about a rookie being delusional. This was about a 5th-round pick wielding the kind of leverage usually reserved for superstars. Newton's episode, bluntly titled Cam Finishes Jilly, Cheater's 5th-round reality and Joe Flacco stinks blew up. The clip about Sanders alone racked up 1.2 million views in just 72 hours across X, Instagram, and TikTok. Fans were split down the middle. Was Sanders a genius rewriting the rules of NFL power dynamics? Or was he a reckless kid flushing his career down the drain before it even started? Newton, though, wasn't just dropping names for shock value. He came with context, receipts that painted a picture of draft day chaos. According to his source, during a 20 to 30-minute window in that 5th round, Sanders' agent David Mulligetta fielded calls from multiple teams. But instead of conducting a bidding war for his client's services, Sanders kept saying no. Again and again. To fully understand the magnitude of this, you need to remember how far Sanders had fallen. Just months earlier, mock drafts had him going top 10. Some experts had him pegged as high as the 5th overall pick to the Vikings. He was supposed to be a franchise quarterback in waiting. The accuracy, the poise, the football IQ, the NFL pedigree as Deion Sanders' son. And yet, by the time day 3 rolled around, he was radioactive. Teams whispered about his interviews being too confident, about his camp-setting demands, about the perception that drafting Cheater meant drafting an entire ecosystem of expectations and influence. By the 4th round, he was sliding into uncharted humiliation. Every passing pick a live, national rejection. Most players in that spot would have been desperate. They'd take any call, sign any contract, cling to any opportunity. But Sanders? He doubled down. Instead of groveling for a shot, he turned down 3 of the most powerful franchises in the NFL. Start with Baltimore. The Ravens had pick 141, and according to Newton's source, they were prepared to submit Sanders' name. For most rookies, that would have been a dream. The Ravens are the Harvard of quarterback development, an organization that turned Joe Flacco into a Super Bowl champion, that saw Lamar Jackson's brilliance when others doubted. And make no mistake, they wanted Sanders. Their internal evaluations had him ranked as the 4th best quarterback in the entire draft, but Sanders' agent sent back a shocking message. Thanks, but no thanks. And it wasn't about arrogance. According to Newton, Sanders had too much respect for Lamar Jackson to put himself in a position where he'd be hoping for Lamar to get hurt just to see the field. Jackson was 28, locked into a $250 million contract and still in his prime. For Sanders, it wasn't a developmental opportunity. It was a dead end. Then came Philadelphia. Sitting at pick 145, the Eagles weren't exactly quarterback hungry. Jalen Hurts, just 26, had signed a $255 million extension and was entrenched as the face of the franchise. But Eagles GM Howie Roseman has always been a chess player. Drafting Sanders could have been a long-term asset play, develop him for a few years, flip him for draft capital later. And yet Sanders turned them down too, citing the same respect factor. Hurts was young, durable, and locked in. Sanders didn't want to spend half a decade holding a clipboard. That left Cleveland. Unlike Baltimore or Philadelphia, the Browns didn't have stability to sell. What they had was chaos, aging Joe Flacco, a failed experiment in Dorian Thompson-Robinson, a third-round project in Dylan Gabriel, and an increasingly restless fan base. Cleveland wasn't offering a throne. They were offering a knife fight. And that was exactly what Sanders wanted. Think about the mindset it takes to make those choices. He wasn't rejecting opportunity. He was rejecting situations where he'd need his teammates to fail for him to succeed. As Cam Newton explained, that's a toxic mental space for a young quarterback, rooting against your own locker room leader just to get on the field. Sanders wasn't arrogant. He was self-aware. He knew he had fallen. He knew he had work to do. But he also knew that sitting behind Jackson or Hurts for years would be career suicide. He chose the hard road, not the easy one. The fallout was explosive. ESPN's initial report painted him as an entitled diva who thought he was too good to back up Jackson, fueling days of hot takes. Stephen A. Smith called him preposterous. Skip Bayless said he'd lost his mind. The narrative stuck. But Newton's fuller version of the story revealed how misleading that first wave of coverage really was. It wasn't one team. It was three. And the real reason wasn't entitlement. It was respect. All money ain't good money, Newton said on his show. Every opportunity is not really a great opportunity for where you are or what your vision is. That's not arrogance. That's philosophy. And it's a philosophy that may have just changed how future NFL prospects approach their careers. Because let's be clear, what Shedeur Sanders did was unprecedented. A fifth-round pick rejecting teams outright? That's not supposed to happen. Players in his position usually take whatever they can get and thank the league for the privilege. Sanders flipped the power dynamic, betting on himself when everything around him screamed desperation. By September, the numbers told the story. Over 40,000 social media posts referenced Newton's revelation with a fascinating split. 55% pro-Sanders, 35% anti-Sanders, 10% neutral. The debate cut across fan bases, political lines, even generations. Some saw him as a visionary, a new generation athlete demanding agency in his career. Others saw him as reckless, burning bridges he couldn't afford to burn. But through it all, Sanders remained steady. In Cleveland, he was already proving the doubters wrong with preseason flashes, completing 26 of 35 passes for 267 yards and 2 touchdowns, earning an 82.4 PFF grade. Not superstar numbers, but the kind of performances that show potential, that hint at the long game he's playing. And maybe that's the lesson here. Sanders wasn't rejecting teams out of arrogance. He was rejecting circumstances that didn't align with his vision. He was willing to bet on chaos, to bet on Cleveland, because he believed that was where he'd have the best chance to write his own story. It was risky. It was controversial. But it was his choice, his gamble, his vision. The draft has never seen a move like it. And whether Shedeur Sanders ends up as a cautionary tale or a trailblazer who rewrote the rules of NFL leverage, one thing is certain. The conversation about how rookies approach their careers will never be the same again. But what do you think? Was Shedeur Sanders making the smartest power play we've ever seen from a rookie quarterback, or was he throwing away the opportunity of a lifetime? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you're fired up about this story, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the drama shaping the future of football.